Number 10. Alien coinage. A group of people renovating a house in the south of Egypt stumbled upon a small collection of very strange coins that appeared to be ancient. The coins depict an alien figure dressed in what appears to be a Roman toga with some strange letters stamped along the edges. On the other side of the coins is something that looks an awful lot like a spaceship hovering above the ground. The coins don't show any human figures or really anything that suggests that they came from Earth. UFO hunters have been trying to convince people that the coins are direct evidence that aliens were here a very long time ago, and that they either brought their own money with them or made these coins here on Earth. The strange words on the coins have been since identified as ancient Latin, translating to, "It's here in due time." We don't know what exactly that means or even where these coins could have possibly come from. Mainstream scientists have yet to elaborate on the discovery, neither verifying nor coming forward to disprove the artifacts. They could be part of some elaborate hoax or real coins left behind by a race of alien visitors. Number 9. Tablets of Curses. In Serbia, archaeologists discovered small parchments of gold and silver inscribed with what they believe to be ancient curses. These bizarre tablets were found alongside the skeletons of a few people at an excavation site in the northeast. Archaeologist Miomir Korac and her team scoured the site, which they say was once the Roman city of Viminacium. But let's break down these creepy tablets. The artifacts were covered in symbols and writings which have yet to be fully deciphered. 2,000 years ago, when the tablets were made, it wasn't uncommon for Greco-Romans to ask the gods, and in some cases even the dead, to perform acts of cruelty upon their rivals. One of these newly found scrolls was even written in ancient Aramaic, invoking the name of the demon Baal. But the rest of them haven't been translated yet because they don't contain enough recognizable text. They are instead inscribed mostly with unknown symbols that may represent cosmic forces. They were all definitely curses, but archaeologists are still trying to figure out just what exactly their intended purpose was. Number 8. Tree skeleton. In New Haven, a tree fell over to reveal a human skeleton. Tangled in the exposed roots was a collection of bones, rusted nails, and wood fragments that have since been collected by medical examiners. One of these examiners was Connecticut state archaeologist Nicholas Bellantoni. According to the researchers, this part of New Haven was once used as a mass burial ground during the days of the colonists. And judging by just how many bones were found tangled in with the tree trunks, there was more than one person buried here. If the archaeologists keep digging, chances are they could find more bodies than they'll know what to do with. For right now, all that's been uncovered is a skull, a spine, and a rib cage in the base of the tree itself. But these are likely from more than one individual. The archaeologists believe the bodies had been buried in the late 1700s and that there could be up to 5,000 more in the area. Number 7. Terrifying spiders. Scientists in Georgia have made what could be the creepiest discovery in recent memory that actually has a real-world effect, at least an effect on people living in Georgia. The Joro spider is an invasive species of arachnid that only recently began to grow in numbers. But scientists are now warning residents in northern Georgia that the species is no longer growing slowly, but at an alarming rate. This terrible spider is a native of Asia. It has colorful yellow stripes, and it was first sighted by researchers at the University of Georgia sometime in 2013. Researchers say it probably made its way to Georgia inside shipping containers from China or Japan. And guess what? They've also been found in Greenville, South Carolina. The spiders are starting to creep across America. Rick Hobeck, who has been tracking the various sightings, says they are here to stay and won't be going anywhere. And this is creepy for one major reason. The Joro spider is huge and alarming. The Joro spider may not be dangerous, but it's certainly frightening, and their numbers are multiplying so fast that if you live in the area, chances are you're going to find one in your house very soon. For anyone who lives in the Georgia area, have you seen any of these terrifying yellow spiders just yet? And if so, what was your immediate reaction? Let us know in the comments below, and if you're liking this video, be sure to hit the thumbs up and subscribe buttons if you haven't already. Number 6. A satanic shack. An urban explorer named Adam Corkill was checking out an abandoned house in the countryside of Taunton in England when he found more than he bargained for. According to Adam, the house appeared to have been empty for at least 20 years. The kitchen was dilapidated, covered with cracked and broken floor tiles from the 1970s. The walls were damp and rotting. The whole place looked like it needed to be torn down immediately. But beyond the ordinary weirdness of an abandoned home, Adam also discovered traces of possible satanic activity. The hallway was covered in graffiti, including some obscure references to Satan. There was no evidence that anything foul had taken place, although it was honestly pretty hard to tell. The sofa was flipped on its side, personal items were scattered everywhere, and the entire back wall of the house had already fallen down. It's not clear why the owners left, who was inside writing Satan's name on the wall, or even if the house is filled with ghosts. Number 5. The Mummy Who Opens Her Eyes. Rosalia Lombardo died at the young age of 2, stricken by pneumonia in the year 1920. Today, she is one of the best preserved mummies in the world. She looks so much like she did at the time of her death that some people swear she opens her eyes and looks directly at them. Rosalia is hidden in an obscure Sicilian catacomb. When she died, her father was so stricken by grief that he went to an embalmer named Alfredo Salafia to turn his girl into a mummy. Whatever Alfredo did, it worked. Her internal organs are still perfectly intact 100 years later. Her face is so fresh that it looks like she's sleeping, and occasionally you can see her bright blue irises when she, quote-unquote, opens her eyes. She's one of the 8,000 mummies that were discovered underneath the Capuchin convent in modern times, located in Sicily. But the truth is that she doesn't actually open her eyes. In 2009, the Italian biological anthropologist Dario Piombino Mascali debunked the myth. He says it's an optical illusion produced by light filtering through the side of a window. During the day, the change in the light makes it look as though her eyelids are opening when in fact they aren't. Still, she's without a doubt the most impressive mummy and one of the creepiest that you can see today. Number 4. Two-headed cobra. The only thing creepier than one cobra is a cobra with 2 heads. In India, forest officials stumbled upon a very strange creature in the jungle. Adil Mirza, a snake expert who's been working with the forest department for over 15 years, was the first one to lay eyes on the 2-headed spectacled cobra. This literal freak of nature had 2 heads growing out of its neck and pointing in opposite directions. According to Adil, he had never, in all his years of encountering snakes, seen something like it. The serpent appeared to be less than 2 weeks old, only about 1.5 feet long, but oddly enough, it was still alive. Snakes with this extreme of a deformity almost never survive in the wild because they can't catch enough prey to sustain themselves. Luckily for this one, it was sent to the nearby Dehradun Zoo to be examined and kept alive by a veterinarian. With human intervention, this 2-headed snake might actually live a full life. Number 3. Satanic coins. Hidden beneath Bath Abbey in Somerset, England, restoration archaeologists discovered a pair of coins that seemed to be satanic in origin. The coins depict a horned and hoofed devil wielding a trident. The words Civitas Diaboli were stamped on the coins as well, translating roughly to City of the Devil. But just what in the world could these potentially satanic coins mean? Were archaeologists on the trail of a cult of medieval devil worshippers? Unfortunately, no. The coins were actually made in the year 1973 by an art gallery clerk in Denmark. It was part of a practical joke that Scandinavians who remember it still call it the prank of the century. Back in 73, islanders on the remote Danish island of Anholt started finding real evidence of satanic rituals. They found strange masks, bones wrapped up in string, and even a fake human head stuck on a stake. It was after this that devil coins started appearing in churches and crypts, about 400 in total. It sparked fears of a satanic cult on the prowl, but it was really just one guy who thought he was hilarious, leaving fake devil coins in archaeological spots. Somehow, 2 of these coins wound up in England, where they shocked archaeologists before they figured out that coins were part of a 40-year-old prank. Number 2. Creepy graffiti. Ancient Roman graffiti has been discovered in Pompeii, with experts saying the Romans may have been just as disgusting with their graffiti as some people are today. Most of us already know the story of Pompeii. In the year 79 AD, Mount Vesuvius erupted, and everyone in the city died from an explosion of heat and gas, and were buried under ash for 2,000 years. The entire city is immaculately preserved, including the graffiti, and even though most of the graffiti has faded over time, the stuff that hasn't is downright creepy. Graffiti here has been catalogued since the 1800s. Archaeologists have found some disturbing portrayals of city prostitutes carved into walls, wildly inappropriate insults seemingly aimed at one's enemies, and even stuff so simple as, "I was here." And while some of this stuff is humorous, a lot of it is so raunchy and gross that I can't even repeat it. Apparently, Romans had a seriously sick sense of humor, and they let everyone know by carving their dirtiest thoughts on the city walls. Number 1. Tree Mummy. A man was going for a walk in the Evergreen Memorial Park and Cemetery in Los Angeles, one of the oldest graveyards in the city. During his walk, he stumbled upon some mummified remains and a mysterious box stashed in a tree. This cemetery was established way back in 1877. It's no surprise that there's some old and seriously creepy stuff hidden here. The walker, who was out with his dog, was picking up sticks to burn in his kiln at home when he noticed an object stuck in an old tree. It was a wooden box tied shut with string. Inside the box, he found a small figure wrapped in cloth. It looked to be some kind of baby mummy, and it very well might have been. The walker put the mummified remains back where he found him, not wanting to disrespect the dead, but he did upload the photos online. That was when experts came forward to say it was a popular practice in the 1800s for women to put miscarried fetuses inside small boxes. They then buried the little boxes in trees, a way of returning the deceased back to nature.
Number 10. The Mask of Alexander Peden. The mask was first discovered in the 1840s in a small cottage in Cumnock, Scotland. This grim family heirloom was a crude mixture of leather, human hair, and even human teeth. While this mask can, without a doubt, fuel nightmares, it did play a very important role for its original owner. Alexander Sandy Peden, also known as the Prophet of the Covenant, was born in Ayrshire, Scotland, around 1626. He went to Glasgow University before becoming minister in New Luce in 1659. Unfortunately for Peden, only 2 short years after becoming minister, the Stuart Restoration of 1661 hit the British Isles, forcing Peden to leave his beloved church behind. He later went on to become a field preacher, speaking out against the English crown. He became the best field preacher in all of Scotland. In turn, this made Peden a very wanted man by the government. Peden wore this horrifying mask to protect his identity from soldiers who were looking for him, and keep preaching out against what he saw as injustice to the Scottish people. This unfortunately didn't work for long, as Peden later had to flee to Ireland to escape the English military and the laws. Peden went back and forth from Scotland to Ireland a number of times before dying in 1686. A little under 2 months later, the English crown sent troops to dig up his body and rebury it 2 miles away as one last act of disrespect on his name and memory. Number 9. The House Full of Bones. We've all had a nightmare or two of finding something terrifying lurking in your home. Maybe even in the dead of night, you've heard something knocking, trying to get you to let it in. Well, in July of 2013, a contractor tasked with cleaning out an abandoned house in Poughkeepsie, New York, made a gruesome discovery behind a false wall in the basement. He found the remains of a woman named Joanne Nichols. Her skeleton was found sealed in a large plastic bin, covered in plastic wrap, and wrapped in a sheet. Her hands were tied tight with rope, and there was visible blunt force trauma to the side of her head. The only way police were able to identify her was through dental records. Her late husband, James Nichols, reported Joanne missing on the 21st of November 1985 after she failed to show up for her hair appointment. The police launched an intense investigation in which they didn't find anything. James was found dead in his home in December of 2012 of natural causes. And since the discovery of Joanne's remains, James has been a suspect in the murder case. While this case remains cold to this day, it makes you wonder what secrets your house might be hiding. Number 8. Headless Axe Murderer. The year is 1979, and deep underground in a network of volcanic caves, a family hunting for arrowheads discovered a man's headless torso in eastern Idaho. The torso belonged to a bootlegger and axe murderer by the name of Joseph Henry Lovelace. Talk about a family outing. Loveless died sometime during the spring-summer of 1916 after escaping jail. Besides the smuggling and selling of illegal liquor, he brutally murdered his wife by beating her brains out with an axe, in the words of a local newspaper at the time. His mummified hand was later found on March 30th, 1991, by an 11-year-old girl exploring the same cave where Loveless's body was found. This tipped off officials to search more thoroughly throughout the area, and found later his arm and both legs. Researchers and students from Idaho State University spent months looking for his head, but they could never find it. However, it wasn't until January of 2020 his remains could be identified via the DNA Doe Project, a project to use genetics to help identify John Does. Loveless's body, or what was left of it, was almost perfectly preserved due to the cold conditions in the cave. Even his socks were perfectly intact. Officials even found his 87-year-old grandson in California to compare DNA with. Now, if he was the axe murderer, why was he cut into pieces? While authorities can't say with any degree of certainty, one of the researchers working on the case has a theory. His ex-wife's family was in town to collect her body right around the time Loveless broke out of jail. Put two and two together, and that makes for a few more than just two pieces in a cave. Number 7. The 2,000-year-old cold case, the old Croghan Man. This one is for the true crime fans out there. A 2,000-year-old possible murder case in Ireland. Meet the old Croghan Man, a bog-preserved torso with arms, found in 2003 near Croghan Hill in County Offaly, not too far from Dublin. The old Croghan Man, or what was left of him, provided researchers with some rather specific evidence as to who he was. He stood at roughly 6'5", and his body presented little to no signs of having worked in physical labor, showing that he was most likely a member of upper society, and maybe even a pretty big deal during his time in the area he was found. This theory is further backed up by the chemical analysis of his remaining hair and nails that showed that his diet was rich in meat, a rare luxury during that time. From here, the theory does become murky, as the state of his remains could be described as overkill to say the least. There was a slash in his upper left arm, which researchers believe is a defensive wound. The wound was stitched up with hazel branches, but he was still stabbed in the chest, neck, decapitated, and eventually cut in half. Eamon P. Kelly, a keeper of Irish antiquities at the National Museum of Ireland, suggested that the old Croghan Man wasn't murdered at all, but rather he was sacrificed. He believed he was a failed king or a failed candidate for kingship, who was likely killed and placed in a bog that formed important tribal boundaries. The old Croghan nipples were cut. Sucking a king's nipples in ancient Ireland was a gesture of submission, and cutting them would have made him incapable of kingship. His body may have served as an offering to the goddess of the land. According to Kelly, his multiple injuries may reflect the belief that the goddess was not only one of the land and fertility, but also of sovereignty, war, and death. Kelly said, by using a range of methods to kill the victim, the ancient Irish sacrificed to the goddess in all her forms. What do you think? Was this guy violently murdered, or was he sacrificed? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. And if you're liking this video, be sure to hit the thumbs up and subscribe buttons if you haven't already. Number 6. Dark matter. We've all wondered how the universe fits together, how it works in the way that the cosmic pinwheels of galaxies do. Well, for that, we have to thank dark matter. While dark matter isn't creepy in the traditional sense, it's more of an existential flavor of creepiness. First theorized in the 1930s, and then later confirmed to be an accepted theory in the scientific community in the 1980s. Researchers are fairly certain that dark matter is the glue that holds galaxies together. Well, maybe. NASA researchers are more sure of what it isn't, rather than what it is. What they do know is that a mathematical model that would work to show the composition of a universe falls into something like this: 68% dark energy, 27% dark matter, 5% normal matter. Without getting too into the realm of astrophysics, here's what NASA knows dark matter is not. It's not just invisible normal matter, as there are gravitational waves that don't line up with our known models of normal matter. It's not galaxy-sized black holes, as light doesn't bend around the area of study, as light tends to do around black holes. Dark matter gets a spot on this list because of this lack of understanding of what this stuff is, and most importantly, what it can or can't do. Do you have any theories on the possibilities of dark matter? Let us know your thoughts down below. Number 5. Pit of Death. In eastern France, a literal pit of gruesome violence was uncovered in 2012. Originally found in Bergheim, France, just west of the border with Germany. The bodies of 2 men, 1 woman, 4 children, and 1 infant's skull, dating back to roughly 6,000 years ago, were discovered. The bodies were piled in a pit that already contained a collection of left arms, soon to be hacked off by axes or other sharp tools. Researchers are not sure if the left arms were targeted for a particular reason, but some believe they may have been taken as trophies. At the bottom of the pit, there were scattered hand bones, suggesting that the hands from the severed limbs had been deliberately cut into little pieces. Even more gruesome was that no one knew where the rest of the bodies that were missing these limbs were. The full skeletons in the pit all had their arms intact. However, the researchers studying the site are starting to believe that these pits and this style of corpse disposal was much more common in ancient Europe than previously believed. Closer inspections of human bones previously found in circular pits like this elsewhere in Europe will reveal additional details of violent deaths from a time when conflicts occurred between some communities. Some of these conflicts were more violent than others. Some researchers simply regard these pits as ancient storage silos that were put to other uses. Others argue that most pits were dug as graves for individuals of higher status whose servants or relatives were killed to accompany them into the afterlife. Or perhaps slaves might have been killed and put in the pits as displays of wealth or as sacrifices to the gods. The more archaeologists keep digging around in ancient places, the more we'll discover about the past of our ancestors. Number 4. The Big Fin Squid, or Magnapinidae. With only 5% of the Earth's water explored, it remains much of a mystery as to what lurks in the pitch-black depths of the ocean. The few creatures that we have found are generally considered otherworldly, with the exception of the Big Fin Squid, or Magnapinidae. While it looks like something from the darkest nightmares of an alien, this is indeed a real creature that lives around 12,000 feet below the surface. First found in a fisherman's net off the coast of Portugal in 1905, we know almost nothing about these mysterious underwater critters. Researchers know very little about them. In only the 12 total sightings we've seen in our recorded history, we've only ever found juveniles, so we don't even know how big they get. Researchers were able to measure one specimen using underwater lasers. It measured 5.9 feet, with the body being about 6 inches. To make matters even stranger, there have been sightings from Portugal to Brazil to Australia, meaning that if you live near the coast, there's a likelihood that you're boating right over the top of a group of these out-of-this-world beings. Number 3. Ancient mustard gas. Warfare is usually a messy, scary business, especially if you mix in chemicals that can blind, choke, and kill. Normally, when we think about chemical warfare, we think of the trenches of World War I, mustard gas, and gas masks. Well, the history of chemical warfare actually goes back way further. The earliest evidence goes all the way back to 256 CE in Dura Europos, or what's now eastern Syria, discovered in 2009 by British archaeologists. A tomb of 20 Roman soldiers was found with residues of sulfur crystals and bitumen, which when burned can turn the mucus into human lungs to acid. The Syrians were attempting to take the city back from the Romans by digging tunnels to secretly bring in more troops. The Romans countered by digging their own tunnels, and in turn exposed themselves to the Syrians. The Syrians lit a toxic fire and blocked off the exits to the Roman tunnels. They died breathing the fumes of hell, noted one of the British researchers. Number 2. Zombie worm or Osedax. Despite the name, the zombie worm or the Osedax doesn't actually crave brains. Well, at least not at first. First discovered in 2002, the 1 to 3 inch worms live at a depth of 10,000 feet under the ocean, and they really blur the lines of understanding when it comes to animals. First things first, they feast on the bones of any animal, from gray whales to fish to even cows that fall off ships or get tossed into the 7 seas. However, without a mouth or stomach, they eat in a truly disgusting and horrific way. These zombie worms secrete an acid from their skin to dissolve the bones into the world's worst Slurpee, and the bacterium in the worms' bodies sucks it up through their pores, and then somehow transfer the energy and nutrients to the worm. Researchers still don't understand how they get any nutrients from the bones, but the worms don't seem to care too much about what researchers think. The strangest part of this worm is that the females are the only ones eating any of the bones. The microscopic males simply live inside the female and feed on whatever she's feeding on. One female was observed with over 110 males living inside her. Talk about clingy boyfriends. Number 1. Shigir Idol. The Shigir Idol is the oldest known piece of ritual art. It's a sinister 9-foot-tall wooden totem pole. It's over 11,600 years old, making it thousands of years older than the pyramids and Stonehenge. It has baffled researchers and archaeologists since it was first discovered in 1890, dug out of a peat bog by gold miners in Russia. The relic, or what's left of it, is carved from a massive slab of freshly cut larch. Geometric patterns are scattered all over it, and 8 human faces, each with slashes for eyes, that seem to peer out at whoever is gazing upon it. The idol has raised more questions than answers when it comes to the true nature of the past. No one who comes into contact with the idol has ever felt a sense of peace when looking at it. Thomas Terberger, an archaeologist and head of research at the Department of Cultural Heritage for Lower Saxony in Germany, had this to say about the nature of the carving. Whether it screams or shouts or sings, it projects authority, possibly malevolent authority. It's not immediately a friend of yours, much less an ancient friend of yours.
Number 10. The Sateremawe Tribe. In most societies, becoming a man usually means something like getting your driver's license or making it all the way with a girl. For the Sateremawe tribe in Brazil, becoming a man is much more painful. The Sateremawe tribe believes that to be considered a man, they must experience the most excruciating pain imaginable. Facing that pain would prove their strength and worthiness. According to the tribal chiefs, a life lived with no kind of suffering or effort is hardly worth anything at all. The leaders subjected boys as young as 12 years old to hundreds and hundreds of bites from bullet ants. The bullet ant has the most painful sting in the animal kingdom. Entomologist Justin Schmidt, the inventor of the Schmidt Sting Pain Index, said the sting of a bullet ant was like huge waves and crescendos of burning pain. It wasn't just 2 or 3 of these waves. It continued for around 12 hours. Crash, recede, crash. It was absolutely excruciating. That was just one bullet ant. For the Sateremawe initiation ritual, boys put on gloves made of leaves that are filled with dozens of these ants. Then, they must keep the gloves on for 10 minutes while performing a ritual dance. Then they do it repeatedly for a total of 20 times. The boys experience unimaginable pain, shake uncontrollably for hours, and sometimes experience muscle paralysis, disorientation, and hallucinations. Once the ritual is complete, the boy is now a man, ready to face the dangers of the Amazon rainforest. Number 9. Cicada 3301. Not every secret ritual involves ancient tribes deep in the jungle. Some secret societies possibly still exist to this very day. This ritual is so modern, it involves cryptography, internet puzzles, hacking, and more. There's even a feature film about this secret society. We're talking about Cicada 3301. It all started in 2012 with a mysterious image posted on the website 4chan. The image, signed by 3301, was just white text on a black background that read, "We are looking for highly intelligent individuals. To find them, we have devised a test. There is a message hidden in this image." And just like that, the race began. What began as finding a hidden message in an image file turned into an online scavenger hunt with increasingly more complex puzzles. Supposedly, Cicada 3301 used these puzzles as an initiation ritual to find people skilled in cryptography and cybersecurity. One person who solved the puzzle and claims to have been part of the group said that he eventually worked on a coding project for Cicada 3301. He said that he barely knew what was going on. "I wasn't sure what I was getting into." They insinuated they were part of a bunch of different organizations, he said. To this day, no one is sure if Cicada 3301 was just an elaborate prank, a government recruiting tool, or something even more nefarious. For now, the secret society appears to have gone dark, or perhaps they have just gone deeper into hiding. Number 8. The Order of the Skull and Bones. How about a secret society whose members include former US presidents? Formed at the prestigious Yale University in 1832, the Order of the Skull and Bones continues to recruit members into its hidden folds to this very day. Each year, they invite 15 senior Yale students to take part in the initiation ritual for the Skull and Bones. The ritual takes place in a place appropriately named the Tomb. In a giant windowless fraternity house, they only allow members and initiates inside to participate in secret meetings and rituals. One reporter allegedly infiltrated and recorded the most sacred of rites for the Skull and Bones initiation ritual. The reporter said that the ritual involved initiates enduring obscene sexual insults, an imitation throat-cutting murder, and kissing an actual human skull. They finally bring initiates into the Order of the Skull and Bones by chanting the mantra, "The hangman equals death. The devil equals death. Death equals death." Some say that the Order of the Skull and Bones is nothing more than an overblown college frat house. Conspiracy theorists believe that the Skull and Bones are part of a plot to establish a new world order, and the society controls the CIA. Whatever the case, both former President George W. Bush and former Secretary of State John Kerry confirmed that they were part of the order. Number 7. Poro Society. Found in remote regions of Sierra Leone, Liberia, and the Ivory Coast, the Poro Society is an extreme boys' club. They only allow men into the group through secret initiations. The roots of the secret society run deep, with evidence of its existence going back to 1000 AD. Because it's been around for so long, they consider becoming a member of the Poro Society an important rite of passage for adolescent boys. Once a member, they elevate the boys in social status, prestige, and even politically. To become a member of the Poro Society, they subject boys to sleeping in groups in the wild, far away from friends and family. They are led by a chief known as Beni to learn secret Poro traditions, including drumming and song. It's not all song and dance though. Part of the initiation involves grueling self-mutilation, cutting, stabbing, and scarring themselves. Once they complete their initiation, they return home as full-grown adults. According to one study, most male adults that hold an elite position of power are part of the Poro Society because of the symbolic power of the group. That same study found that members use their position within the Poro Society to evade the law and go unpunished for human rights violations in the name of defending culture. Number 6. Sandy. The Sandy is essentially the female version of the Poro Society. Existing in many of the same regions as the Poro, the Sandy initiation is much like the Poros. They seclude the girls deep in the woods, far from their homes. But it gets much worse from there. Part of the Sandy initiation involves female genital mutilation, or FGM. It's as gruesome and painful as it sounds. Many regions where the Sandy exists are still trying to fight the barbaric ritual, but for the Sandy, it's meant to help women bear children. The scars exist to prove that the women are part of the Sandy. They teach them their womanly duties, including domestic skills, farming, and medicine. After the initiation and education are complete, the women return home and are eligible for marriage. Some women escape the horrid ordeal and try to spread awareness. One survivor said they forcibly took her from her home like a criminal and beat her severely. Another said that they forced the girls to lie in the blistering sun with nothing but a leaf on their backs and told them to stay in the sun until the leaf dried out. Fortunately, progress is being made against these awful initiation practices. Political leaders in Liberia have enforced a strict 3-year ban on all Sandy practices in the region. Number 5. The Freemasons. Of all the secret societies, this is probably one of the more popular ones. That kind of defeats the purpose of it being a secret, doesn't it? Anyway, the Freemasons have been around for hundreds and hundreds of years. They still shroud many of their rites and rituals in mystery. All Masonic rituals take place in a lodge, their secret meeting place. Since we can find Freemasons all over the world, each lodge may have its particular standards and practices. For example, some may have their initiation rituals written in a script, while others may not. This lack of standardization helps further keep the Freemasons shrouded in mystery. All Freemason initiation rituals heavily involve symbolism, with Freemasonry being described as a beautiful system of morality, veiled in allegory, and illustrated by symbols. Most initiations involve different degrees, some up to 3 degrees of initiation, from apprentice to master. Some lodges will also use tracing boards, illustrated depictions of emblems and imagery, to teach new initiates about being a Freemason. Once initiation is complete, members use secret hand signs, handshakes, or spoken codes to gain access to meetings or identify each other in public. There have been some very famous Freemasons throughout history. Do you know any of them? Leave your answers in the comments below. Number 4. Leopard Society. Have you ever heard stories of cannibals that live in the darkest jungles of Africa? Well, some of those stories might be true, and they might involve the Leopard Society. Existing at least from the 1700s until the early 1900s, members of the Leopard Society wore leopard skin clothing and hunted with weapons made from leopard claws and teeth. The Leopard Society would hunt unsuspecting travelers that would pass through their lands. Once they had their prey, they would cut off their flesh and organs. The blood and body organs of the victims were used to ward off evil spirits, prevent illnesses, and defend against spiritual attacks. Sometimes they drank the victim's blood for more strength on their next hunt. Edgar Rice Burroughs borrowed heavily from the idea of the Leopard Society in the novels Tarzan and the Leopard Men. Interestingly, the leopard skin clothing also inspired some of the costume designs for the tribes of Wakanda in Marvel's Black Panther film. The Leopard Society no longer seems to exist in modern Africa. One scholarly article said that the depictions of African people as barbarians and savages have caused concern for the representation of Africa. The same study states that these fictional accounts contribute to stereotypical and racist representations of past African societies being overemphasized. It's certainly an interesting take on the old school ideas of cannibals. What do you think? Tell me in the comments. Number 3. The Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn. They formed the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn, or just the Golden Dawn, in London in 1887. They are a secret society involved in the occult, the metaphysical, and the supernatural. Some famous members of the Golden Dawn include Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, Bram Stoker, and W.B. Yeats. Founded by former Freemasons, the Golden Dawn shared similar initiation rites and degrees to the Freemasons. Unlike other secret societies, the Golden Dawn allowed women to join. This was a pretty big deal back in the late 1800s. Supposedly, they wrote the rituals for the Golden Dawn down in the cipher manuscripts. They discovered the 56-folio bundle of encoded writings, decoded, and found them to contain many occult rituals, including Kabbalah, astrology, tarot, and more. No one knows who originally wrote the cipher manuscripts, and some believe that they were nothing more than forgeries. After many revolts and splinter groups formed, the Golden Dawn only lasted around the 1970s. An organization filed under the name Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn for non-profit status in 1988. They granted that same organization a trademark and patent for the symbol of the Golden Dawn in 1997. Could this occult secret society still lurk out there today? What do you think? Number 2. Epee. We can find the Epee Society in West Africa, including Nigeria and Cameroon. Coincidentally, the word Epee in the Ekoi language means leopard, but don't confuse them with that other leopard society. According to this society, Epee is a spirit that lives deep within the jungle. That spirit is present in all Epee Society rituals, and the members must honor the spirit. Members consider themselves messengers for their long-dead ancestors. Through the spirit Epee, they communicate and pay tribute to those ancestors. The Epee Society also believes in taking care of their own law enforcement, so to speak. Members make and enforce their laws, dole out punishments like fines or boycotts, and judge their cases. They do all of this intending to keep those ancestral spirits happy. They only allow men into the Epee Society. They are initiated around the time when they reach puberty and must maintain their membership in secret. Supposedly, there are 7 or 9 ranks within the society, and men can pay their way up in ranking. The higher their ranking, the more power they have in their village or town. We can still find Epee shrines in modern regions of Nigeria, including the city of Calabar. These shrines serve many purposes as a meeting place, location for festivals and rituals, and the initiation and induction of new members. Mainly, they revere these shrines for their religious meanings, and some have secluded spaces to make offerings to deities or spirits. Number 1. The Illuminati. The Illuminati seem to be the granddaddy of all secret societies, and for good reason. No one is sure where the line is between fact and fiction with the Illuminati. If they exist, that's probably exactly how they want it. The Illuminati existed in Bavaria way back in 1776. Formed by Adam Weishaupt, Weishaupt wanted to eliminate all religions and topple every government so mankind could live peacefully and as equals. But that group supposedly only lasted for 10 years. Many modern-day groups claim to have ties back to the original Illuminati, but we can prove no actual linkage. Members of the Illuminati would have secret code names for one another. Like the Freemasons, they also heavily use symbolism, such as the Owl of Minerva and the All-Seeing Eye. Initiates would have to undergo a grueling 3-year process to be allowed into their society. Once allowed in, it would force them to secrecy under the punishment of death.
The Venice Vampire Skull. While excavating a mass grave dating back to the Middle Ages on an island near Venice, archaeologists found a strange skull. Not any other skull. It was the skull of a vampire. It had its mouth wide open, with a large slab of rock or a brick forced into its mouth. It was so far back that the jaw was broken. Here's a little backstory to this unusual finding. Female vampires were often blamed for spreading the dreadful plague epidemic throughout Europe. Wedging a rock or brick into the mouth of a suspected vampire was considered as an effective way of preventing it from feeding on the bodies of other plague victims, and in turn, rising from the grave to attack the living. After researchers dived into the history of the skull, they finally learned that it belonged to an elderly woman who had lived well past the normal age of that time, and she was estimated to be between 60 to 71 years old. People in that time usually did not live that long. After her death, it's thought that the people who buried her decided to jam a brick in her mouth, which was often done to bodies people thought could come back as vampires. While the lady probably just lived a healthier life than most, the people around weren't taking any chances. The thought that plague victims might also be vampires arose, because blood often dribbled from the mouths of those who died from the disease. It is now believed that she could have also been a witch. This is due to the fact that scientists know that no one really lived past the age of 40 during those times, and anyone who did were thought to have practiced witchcraft in order to extend their life and ultimately cheat death. A year after the excavation, the investigators started looking deeper into who this vampire was and why people may have suspected her of dabbling in the dark arts, and even what she might have looked like. It gained so much interest that The Vampire of Venice got her own documentary in the National Geographic series, Mysterious Science, entitled Vampire Forensics. Number 9. Victims preserved in bogs. Bog bodies are extremely well preserved, and these ancient corpses have been discovered all over northwestern Europe. Bogs mean wetlands, which are found in regions with a temperate climate. The skin of the bog bodies turn into a dark, leathery texture, and their hair turns red from the acidic water and lack of oxygen. Occasionally, the clothing is preserved, and any weapons or ornaments stay with the body. Violently killed thousands of years ago, the bog bodies can be found in various states. Some are merely skeletons, and can only reveal a limited amount of information to probing scientists. Others are partially preserved, and may still hold some clues as to who they were or how they died. The owners of these bodies sometimes met death in a violent manner, and were thrown into the bog. Archaeologists examined the works of a Roman historian from the 1st century AD, where he wrote that the Germans killed weaklings and homosexuals, and disposed of the bodies in bogs. Researchers formed the opinion that, rather than weaklings, many of these people were convicted criminals, punished by agonizing torture and execution. More typical was the Iron Age funerary custom of cremation. The Windaby girl, discovered in a German bog in 1952, was assumed to be an adulteress who was drowned along with her paramour. However, on further investigation of the bodies, they discovered that they were both male, and that the other body had been deposited into the bog almost 300 years before the Windaby girl. One of the best preserved bodies found in a bog was discovered in 1952 in an area northwest of Copenhagen. Modern research shows they died at the age of 34 and was sacrificed more than 2,000 years ago. Human sacrifice was common at the time and often followed a natural disaster such as a flood or a destructive storm. According to primitive beliefs, such a disaster was a sign that the gods were angry and a sacrifice was needed to appease them. No one knows for sure how many bog people have been uncovered in the past. Today, documented discoveries of bog bodies number around 700. There are probably many more left undiscovered. Who knows what we may learn about them in the future? When it concerns the bog bodies, archaeologists and anthropologists have redefined their roles as crime scene investigators. Number 8. Screaming mummies. Bodies which are buried in the deep for thousands of years may be found in different states and stages of decomposition or fossilization. After you have unearthed the body, everything looks rather normal, except for the fact that the corpse looks like it is screaming. This has been a recurring experience for archaeologists throughout history, and some believe that the bodies would have met disturbing ends. Mummification in ancient Egypt was performed using clearly defined routines and religious rituals. However, an unidentified mummy found in 1881 had not been prepared in accordance with custom. When his body was unwrapped in 1886, archaeologists found themselves confronted with the horrific, gaping maw of a face contorted in a scream. The mummy was in a sarcophagus that did not bear any name or identifying marks. Unable to proceed further, he was called as Unknown Man E and restored in the Cairo Museum. One look at the body, and you will be having nightmares for quite a while. Over 100 years later, a team of Egyptologists, accompanied by National Geographic, reopened the case of Unknown Man E, who became known as the Screaming Mummy. The mummy's identity was rigorously researched because of his startling appearance. However, most Egyptologists agree that the gruesome visage is merely the result of the deceased head falling backwards after death. Archaeologists intend to conduct a DNA test to confirm the familial connection between the Unknown Man E and Ramesses III. Do you think mummies scream? Maybe it just lost its voice? We don't have any definite answers to these questions yet. The screaming mummies will undoubtedly continue to inspire journalists and documentary scriptwriters and many more. How do we know they aren't singing? Number 7. Pits full of heads. The villagers of China, for decades, believed that the crumbling of rock jade pieces shaped into blades, discs, near their homes were from the Great Wall of China, which was very common along the area. Suspicions grew among the locals as jade was only available at about 1,000 miles away from the area. When a team of Chinese archaeologists came to investigate the rubble, they started unearthing the area and found that the stones weren't a part of the Great Wall, but were the ruins of a magnificent fortress city. The digging revealed a 230 feet high pyramid surrounded by more than 6 miles of protective walls and an inner sanctum containing jade artifacts, painted murals, and gruesome evidence of human sacrifice. The archaeologists had dug up 70 stunning stone sculptures, which were figurines of monsters, serpents, and half-human beasts resembling Bronze Age iconography of China. The site has been named Shimao. It seems Shimao flourished for nearly half a millennium in that remote region, and then suddenly it disappeared. Shimao is forcing historians to rethink the origin of the Chinese civilization. Number 6. The Lloyds Bank Coprolite. The Lloyds Bank Coprolite, one of the weirdest discoveries from the Viking Age, is unlike any other find from that time. The weird fossil is, strangely enough, human feces. It is over 8 inches long and 2 inches thick. It is one of the largest human feces ever discovered. It's not hard to feel sorry for the person who squeezed this out. It was densely packed, so much so that it fossilized, instead of rotting like normal feces would. Now we can all stare at it and wince with sympathy for the poor person who created it. But here is what further research into this blob of excreta revealed. It contained hundreds of eggs belonging to the whipworm, a parasitic worm which lives in the large intestine. Finds like these are incredibly important because it gives us details into the Viking diet. From this fossil, we understand that whoever created it lived on a diet largely made up of pollen grains and cereal bran, which they would have eaten in the form of bread and porridge. The fossil is named after the place it was discovered, and isn't some weird corporate branding exercise. But there's not much known about the person who left it behind, except that their diet was rich. The fossil is now on display in the Jorvik Viking Centre, UK. Whether the coprolite can be valued as a treasure is a question that has remained for ages. Number 5. The Black Sarcophagus. A mysterious black granite sarcophagus, which is approximately 2,000 years old, was discovered in Alexandria, Egypt. The discovery further announced that the massive coffin held the remains of Alexander, and that opening the sealed and foreboding-looking box would unleash a curse. When opened, the sarcophagus was found to contain only the remains of 3 Egyptian army officers and a reddish-brown sewage liquid. One of the skeletons shows signs of an arrow injury, suggesting the 3 may have died in battle. The exact age of the skeletons is unclear. No inscriptions or works of art have been found on the outside or inside of the sarcophagus so far. It's also unclear what artifacts, if any, were buried with the skeletons. The sarcophagus was nearly 9 feet long, 5 feet wide, and 6 feet tall. The sarcophagus was never opened after it was buried in Alexandria. The opening of the sarcophagus creates a series of new mysteries for Egyptologists. Who were these 3 people? When exactly did they live? What killed them? Why were they buried in such a giant sarcophagus? What were they buried with? And how did so much liquid sewage get into the sarcophagus? Do we know all these answers yet? Unfortunately, no. But scientists are working towards uncovering some hidden truth. Archaeologists believe that it could date back to sometime between 304 BC and 30 BC, a time when the descendants of one of Alexander the Great's generals ruled Egypt. Number 4. The very first leper. When archaeologists were digging in India, they found something startling. Archaeologist experts usually find various traces of where life once was, but rarely do they come across something so rare as a disease like this. They discovered evidence of leprosy in a skeleton that was 4,000 years old. It was not only the oldest skeleton that's been found, but it was with traces of leprosy. It was also the first case of leprosy found in India. Leprosy is very difficult to trace and study. While leprosy is curable now, there was no treatment for the disease 4,000 years ago, and lepers were often ostracized by their communities. The investigations have shed light on how the disease might have spread in early human history. Historical sources support an initial spread of the illness from Asia to Europe, with Alexander the Great's army behaving as the vector after 400 BC. The newly discovered skeleton was buried around 2000 BC in Rajasthan, India, at the site of Balathal. Though it is no longer a significant public health threat in most parts of the world, leprosy is still one of the least understood infectious diseases. Number 3. A creepy tiny hand. Archaeologists unearthed a creepy child-sized lifelike miniature bronze hand at the Roman fort of Vindolanda near Hadrian's Wall in England. The hand was found near a temple devoted to the god of Jupiter Dolicanus. The cult of Jupiter Dolicanus is shrouded in a mystery, whose practices were further shrouded in secrecy. It died out before the adoption of Christianity in the main region of the empire. The cult was very popular in the Roman army of the 3rd century CE. Researchers are stating the age of the hand to be between 208 and 212 AD. The hand was likely left as an offering after a major invasion of Scotland, in which a huge number of people may have been killed. The 4-inch hand originally had a socket and would have been fixed to a pole, which is now missing. Jupiter Dolicanus was typically depicted holding a thunderbolt in his hand, with an upraised arm signifying his destructive power, according to experts. The open hand also symbolizes protection and well-being. So, what is your take on this? Does it sound creepy or not? Number 2. Skeletons of twins. A bioarchaeologist says she has discovered the oldest set of confirmed twins during her field research in a Siberian cemetery. The discovery says the exhumed skeletons of a mother and her twins are around 7,700 years old. It says a sad story of a woman who partially delivered one twin in a breech position, which obstructed the birth of the second child. It is impossible to say for sure that there were twins in the past, said Levers, who added that while archaeologists have found babies buried together in the same grave, it doesn't necessarily prove the existence of twins. But finding the twins' bones inside the mother confirms them as the oldest set in the world. The mother, who was between 20 and 25 years old, probably bled to death or died from exhaustion, and was likely unaware that she was carrying twins. This find is the earliest confirmed set of human twins on record. The fact that the first baby came breech was just a death sentence for all three of them. Number 1. Skeletons placed in a circle. Last, but far from least, one of the most troubling examples of human sacrifice comes from Peru. At the ancient site of Pachacamac, 80 skeletons were found arranged in very peculiar ways, with all feet pointing to the center of a circle, and were estimated to be buried around thousands of years ago. These skeletons were placed in the fetal position and consisted of bones of very young people, which were circled in a Peruvian tomb, some of which had false and wooden heads. It is named as one of the creepiest discoveries ever made, simply because of the way the bones were arranged. It was believed that it was the resting place for pilgrims who had come for miraculous cures and didn't get what they expected. It is also assumed that some people might have died naturally. It's considered the largest find of human remains at Pachacamac, and it continues to baffle archaeologists and researchers. Archaeologists help demystify these seemingly bizarre remnants of the past. In doing so, they also do the incredibly important work of helping humanity learn from history, rather than being doomed to repeat it, human sacrifice and all. Number 9. Child skeleton in Sweden. The Swedish island of Öland is a popular vacation destination due to its exceptional environment and warm temperature. But little do visitors know that the same island was once home to a 1,500-year-old murder scene, otherwise known as the Sandbyborg Massacre. There's a lot of uncertainty and speculation around this dark incident, and the details of the massacre remain unknown to this day. But in 2014, the discovery of a child's bones created a link to the past. During the first investigations of Sandbyborg, archaeologists discovered the ruins of a tiny village. Among the rubble, the remains of 10 individuals were uncovered. It's believed that many more bodies could be buried nearby. What could have caused the slaughter? 2 people were also discovered lying close to the entrance of a cabin, as though they had been murdered while trying to escape. According to the findings, the place has been abandoned for almost 1,500 years. Even valuables like golden brooches and jewelry were all left at the site and discovered in 2010 after another excavation attempt. Archaeologists also say the area could have been turned into a forbidden zone years ago after the slaughter, with residents too frightened to return. After all, who would want to go back to that hellhole? According to one interpretation, the slaughter was linked to a drop in Roman gold around the same period. Did trading have any connection with this brutal event? We have yet to find out. Only 3% of the fort has been unearthed so far, and the archaeological team is currently seeking funding to continue their work. Perhaps one of you could sponsor this project. Are you interested? Number 8. Tombs of warrior women in Russia. The Amazon warriors of Greek mythology were thought to be legendary beings. They were a tribe of female fighters and hunters that had unmatched physical capabilities, but this legend might be based in truth. Recently, remains of women buried with swords, horse riding equipment, and other items were discovered. In the year 2019, archaeologists led by Valery Guliev reported the findings of a 2,500-year-old tomb where 4 females were laid to rest together. They originated from a nomadic culture known as the Scythians and were discovered in one of the 19 burial sites found in western Russia. The youngest in the tomb was between the ages of 12 and 13 only. The first 2 were in their 20s, while the third was in their 50s. Interestingly enough, women soldiers were the norm rather than the exception in Scythian society. The adolescents and one of the young women's graves were plundered, but the other 2 were not. The eldest woman wore a gold hat with etched designs, an artifact that is actually the region's first of its kind. They also found an iron blade with a rare forked arrowhead buried alongside the elderly woman. The burial was finished in early fall, around the 4th century BC. A bronze mirror, 2 arrows, and a glass bead bracelet were discovered in the other woman's grave, which had been left untouched. She was actually buried in a position as if she was riding a horse for all eternity. The Scythians were tiny tribes that were known to mainly use bows and arrows in battle. We now know that they were some gutsy people that could have been the inspiration for the Amazonians of mythology. Number 7. 800 mammoth bones in Mexico. Archaeologists uncovered the largest ever finding of mammoth bones in 2019. But here is what makes this find really interesting. They also found the first ever human-made mammoth trap. It's an 800-bone treasure from at least 14 ancient giants located in central Mexico. They're thought to be one of the world's most significant discoveries of its kind. The skeleton remains were discovered at Tultepec, a municipality in Mexico. Some of the creatures even exhibited evidence that they were being hunted. At least 5 mammoth herds were found in the region of the discovery, according to researchers. Mexico has already been the site of unexpected mammoth finds. When you think of Mexico, your first thought probably isn't woolly mammoths. Workers in the 1970s had unearthed a mammoth carcass on the capital's north side. The discovery also revealed the bones of a horse and camel species that had previously vanished from the Americas. Based on these fossilized discoveries, we can assess the history of the planet and the different stages of evolution that have led to our world today. Number 6. Heslington Brain. A 2,600-year-old human brain was discovered in York, still intact. During investigations in the Heslington region back in 2008, a brain from the Iron Age was found. It is said to be among the oldest discoveries in the United Kingdom, dating around 673 to 482 BC. Scientists were initially interested in how the fragile tissue had remained intact. It had been thousands of years. So how had it stayed the same? The only soft tissue left in the skull was indeed the brain matter. Those are some remarkable findings, but the pictures are quite disturbing to look at. Researchers spent a year unraveling the densely packed proteins that kept the brain tissue in a fixed condition and found that it still had many of the characteristics of normal living brain tissue. The University College London UCL researchers discovered that the chemicals that keep a human brain together, particularly proteins, can fold tightly into extremely stable structures called aggregates. Brains often disintegrate fast after death due to a rapid autolysis process, which involves enzymes breaking down the tissue. According to findings, an acidic fluid may have entered the brain and blocked autolysis, or cell suicide basically, which explains its well-preserved state. Scientists believe that the manner of this person's death or burial must have been harsh, allowing the brain to be preserved for such a long time. Who would have thought brains could last so long? What do you think? Let us know in the comments below. And if you're liking this video, be sure to hit the thumbs up and subscribe buttons if you haven't already. Number 5. Roman woman with an ovarian teratoma. In 2013, archaeologists discovered the body of a Roman lady with a tumor in her pelvis, along with 4 malformed teeth. Researchers thought the 30-year-old lady died 1,600 years ago and was buried in a cemetery near Lleida, Spain's Catalonia province. An autopsy found she died of an ovarian teratoma, a Greek term that loosely translates to monstrous swelling in the ovaries. These tumors are caused by abnormalities in the germ cells that produce human eggs. These can grow hair, teeth, and bone, as well as more complicated organs like eyes. These tumors can be extremely deadly. This is possibly the first time researchers have found teratomas in ancient human bones, despite its horrific contents. The researchers speculate that the unusual tumor, which measures approximately 1.7 inches in diameter, may have never given the lady any symptoms. However, since the growth of teratomas results in displacement of surrounding organs, they say it's also conceivable that it was the final reason for her premature death. The tumor wouldn't have been visible from the outside, and experts can't say for sure what effect it had on the lady. Lead researcher Nuria Armentano had said, "We suppose that, at least during a long part of her life, she was completely unaware of this tumor. The tumor's owner lived in an era when the Roman Empire was rapidly fading as barbarian invaders poured in from the north, eventually conquering France, Spain, and other regions." Number 4. Oldest cheese in Egyptian tomb. In Saqqara, Egypt, archaeologists discovered an ancient inedible product. Do you know what the product was? The world's most aged firm cheese. It was originally discovered in 1885, but became lost until 2010, when it appeared again. Archaeologists discovered shattered jars at the location a few years earlier. A hardened white substance was found in one jar, as well as a canvas fabric that could have been used to seal the jar. The scientists isolated the sample's protein components after dissolving them and analyzed them. They found that the relic came from either a cow or a goat. The absence of additional identifiers and the features of the canvas fabric showed that the dairy product was, in actuality, hard cheese. Scientists have warned the cheese may be laden with live germs, causing anybody who's brave enough to try it to become unwell. Come to think of it, could cheese be used as a weapon of murder? Maybe, maybe not. Number 3. Headless Pompeii victim. A shocking find from 79 AD tells the truth about what happened to one unlucky guy. He was the definition of the wrong place at the wrong time. During the eruption of Mount Vesuvius in 79 AD, a man's skull was apparently smashed by a large rock just as he left Pompeii. His head was later discovered, along with the rock. The open-mouthed skull was found alongside the man's body back in 2018. The discovery refutes their earlier assumption that he was smashed by a stone block while attempting to leave the eruption's second phase, which buried much of the old Roman city under rock and ash. The fatality was not caused by the block's impact, but rather by asphyxiation caused by the volcano's flow. Lava is not produced by all volcanoes. Vesuvius erupted about 2,000 years ago, spewing a massive column of rock and ash. The following day, pyroclastic flows must have raced down the mountain, wiping out vast areas of land and people. So what is a pyroclastic flow? It is a superheated, hurricane-force wind that carries ash and rock and can destroy nearly anything in its path. It's pretty scary, so you better stay clear of its way. They happen when a volcano collapses or boils over, releasing a lethal amount of gas, ash, and rock down the side, propelled by gravity and air movement. One would more than likely die if hit by it. The Pompeian guy, who probably had limp from a previous bone ailment, was no match for the fast-moving gush of fire and debris. The air that poured down into Pompeii included poisonous gases which were searing as hot as 1,000 degrees Fahrenheit, and his lungs must not have been able to withstand it. The skull was discovered at a lower level of the ground than the man's corpse, possibly because a tunnel that was constructed during the 1740s had crumbled, taking the head with it. Number 2. Frankenstein bog mummies in Scotland. In Scotland, archaeologists discovered the buried remains of two mummies, a man and a woman. They died 3,000 years ago, but weren't buried then. Instead, the remains were dumped into a bog in Scotland, where they were kept and preserved for 300 to 600 years before then being buried. A human corpse that has been mummified in peat bog is called a bog body. But this is just the start. Things are about to get stranger. Scientists found something wrong with these corpses. The man's limbs appeared out of place, while the woman's mouth seemed a touch too big for her head. Researchers conducted DNA testing on the remains after 10 years and found something shocking and gruesome. These were not really the bodies of two persons. They were 6 different people's bodies molded together, like some kind of Frankenstein's monster. Parts from the women who died around the same period were used to assemble the female body. On the other hand, the masculine body was made up of pieces from people who died hundreds of years ago. Can you imagine how bizarre that is? Playing puzzles with human parts is certainly not cool. So we can only wonder who the twisted individual who did it was. These jigsaw corpses were not created by merely gluing bones together. According to the experts, the bodies were still intact when they were connected, with mummified flesh remaining on the bones. The experts were baffled as to why the creator went through such a strange process, or why they constructed composite mummies in the first place. One theory suggests that the fusion was done to produce a symbolic ancestor who physically embodied features from many lineages. Or were they just experimenting with a gross reconstruction procedure? More like plastic surgery in today's world? We do not know for sure, but there could possibly be more bodies like this out there, waiting to be found. Number 1. Teotihuacan's man-eating animals. Archaeologists discovered what looked to be a cave with animals that were housed within Teotihuacan, the ancient Mesoamerican city. The priests kept dangerous animals like jaguars, pumas, and lynxes there. But why? Was it some sort of a zoo or wildlife exhibit? Well, sorry to disappoint you. These animals were caged and used as sacrifices to appease the gods, not entertainment. The bones of the creatures were still there, thousands of years after their death. At Teotihuacan, researchers discovered at least 194 animal bones slaughtered and put inside pyramids to consecrate the structures. This happened around 500 AD and possibly earlier. human remains were also found amid the animal bones and ceremonial items. However, investigators discovered human bones strewn amongst the animals. The animals' bones were tested, and residues of corn were found in their diet. Maize was more likely to be brought to them by means of eating humans, rather than by eating plants in Teotihuacan's culture. On the walls, there was also artwork depicting these beasts devouring human hearts. It appears that priests of Teotihuacan dragged individuals into these caves. People were placed inside with jaguars and pumas as a penalty or ceremony, thus becoming the animal's meal. How could somebody voluntarily choose to go through that as part of a ritual? That would take a heck of a lot of faith. Human usage of predators and carnivores for their benefit has a lengthy history. According to the authors, it dates back to ancient Egypt, when particular wild creatures were mummified, and also in ancient Rome, where giant carnivores were employed in gladiatorial combat.
Number 8. The Colbran Bible. In 1184, a strange Bible dating back to 3,600 years was found in Glastonbury Abbey. It's filled with forbidden knowledge that the church has tried to keep hidden for centuries. Inside, there are stories detailing unknown events of the past, some that predate current written history. Even more terrifying are the stories that warn us of chaos and destruction that is yet to come. Known as the Colbran Bible, it's the first Judaic-Christian text that combines biblical tales with modern history, including a baffling story of how advanced humans who first arrived on Earth before Adam and Eve survived the first catastrophes by hiding in shelters underground. One of the most fascinating things about the Colbran Bible is that it also has texts from multiple cultures. Alongside the Christian texts, there is writing from Celtic mystics and ancient Egyptian scrolls that detail things that happened after the exodus from Egypt. But it's the connection to Jesus that has scholars most excited. As the story goes, Jesus' great-uncle, Joseph of Arimathea, rescued the Egyptian scrolls from the Library of Alexandria before it was burned by Julius Caesar during his invasion of Egypt. Joseph was believed to have taken the scrolls to Britain, taking them to Glastonbury Abbey, where they stayed hidden for hundreds of years. Sadly, the abbey suffered another fire, but some think it might have been set as a way to get rid of the hidden texts once and for all. Luckily, because some of the manuscripts were carved into thin sheets of bronze and kept in copper-lined containers, they didn't burn, and eventually made their way into the Colbran Bible. Whether or not the Colbran Bible really is filled with secret knowledge, it seems that some have tried to erase the evidence contained in the manuscripts. Maybe one day, the truth about what lies inside the book will come out. Whether it will rewrite human history is just as much of a mystery as the book itself. Number 7. The Secrets of Mus Farm. A discovery made at a Bronze Age settlement in the UK paints a picture of a thriving community. For 10 months, experts worked to uncover the Mus Farm, a 3,000-year-old site in Cambridgeshire. When archaeologists started their work, they knew they had something special. As they continued to dig deeper, they unearthed 5 of the best-preserved Bronze Age dwellings ever found in Britain. The settlement was home to multiple circular wooden houses built on massive stilts sunk into the ground. Each one had a cone-shaped roof that was covered in turf, clay, and thatching. But the construction of these houses over a shallow river could be the very thing that led to their collapse. As researchers examined the remnants of the houses, they found that not long after they were built, the settlement experienced a devastating fire. Even though what was left of the houses was charred, the remnants were so well preserved that many of the household items were still in amazing shape, giving archaeologists a glimpse into how these ancient people lived. Everyday household items like wooden buckets, platters, cups, and bowls were found, some with food still inside them. Metal items including axes, hammers, knives, and spears were also uncovered, along with ornamental objects like beads and handmade textiles. They also found the remains of a wild boar, a red deer, freshwater fish, wheat and barley grains, and young lambs and calves, indicating the late Bronze Age residents had a mixed diet that was rare for its time. But how could these priceless items still be in such good shape so long after they were buried in the River Silt? The riverbed turned out to be the best environment for preservation, with its lack of air and layers of peat and silt protecting the items over time. Even now, researchers can tell that the people at the Must Farm use local plants like flax to weave their own textiles into fine linen and wild fibers to make coarse fabric. Another startling find at the site was the discovery of green and turquoise glass beads that researchers think were made in the Mediterranean basin or the Middle East, proving that these ancient people traded with other cultures. With so many unprecedented fields at one location, archaeologists continue to piece together their discoveries and form a remarkably clear picture of domestic life in the Bronze Age. Number 6. Ancient Italian beads in America. Could a set of rare Venetian glass beads be proof that Europeans were in North America decades before Christopher Columbus? Researchers at the University of Alaska Museum of the North think so. The state was part of an ancient trade route that spanned from the Bering Sea to the Arctic Ocean. If expert theory is true, it would prove that the Venetian glass beads found scattered across 3 different archaeological sites traveled some 10,000 miles from Italy at a time long before one of the world's most infamous navigators set out to America under the flag of Spain. Along with the beads, scientists also found metal bangle bracelets wrapped in plant-based twine, and when they tested the twine, they realized the plant was alive sometime during the 1400s, with the beads originally crafted between 1440 and 1480. Given the fact that Columbus ships didn't set sail for America until 1492, experts immediately asked themselves, how did the beads make it all the way across the ocean to Alaska? It all comes back to the Silk Road, an ancient trade route that linked China to the west, and where they think the beads started their journey across the ocean to Alaska. Instead of going through Rome, like most shipments of silk, the beads likely went east, finding their way into the hands of a trader that researchers believe kayaked across the Bering Sea to Alaska. But their journey didn't end there. Items passed through an ancient trading center on the west coast called Shashlik, before being carried either by foot or by sled dog to the Brooks Mountain Range, where they ended up, staying hidden for over 5 centuries before being uncovered by the research team. Number 5. Oldest human footprints. To continue who was first to arrive in the Americas, a set of footprints on the shore of a dry lake bed has set off a firestorm of excitement in New Mexico, with the idea that they could be the earliest footprints ever found in North America. An archaeologist working with New Mexico's White Sands National Park found the tracks in an area known as Akali Flat in 2009. Even though the tracks had long since hardened into the rock, there were large quantities of seeds embedded in the footprints that would be the key to determining just how old the prints really are. Radiocarbon dating on the seeds helped researchers pinpoint their age, and the results were jaw-dropping. They'd been left behind between 22,800 and 21,130 years ago, thousands of years before experts thought humans arrived on the continent. At first, researchers thought they might be wrong about the dates. It was possible that old carbon from nearby rocks had leaked into the water and deposited into the seeds. So it took a little bit of sleuthing and more tests to solidify their findings. And when they did, they were stunned to realize the discovery meant humans settled in North America before or during the last ice age instead of after it, which was the previous theory. The stunning discovery would change the timeline of not only the human species, but the entire world. The original belief that the first prehistoric humans arrived in North America came from an ancient spear tip near Clovis, New Mexico. The Clovis theory revolved around the belief that around 13,000 years ago, the first people traveled across a land bridge that connected Siberia to Alaska. One of the really interesting things about the ancient footprints is that most of them belong to children and teenagers. They show that even in prehistoric times, these humans weren't only about hunting and gathering. They had social relationships like we do today. Thousands of footprints have been found at White Sands National Park, spread across 80,000 acres. Extinct animal tracks from mammoths, dire wolves, and giant sloths have also been uncovered, showing how humans and animals coexisted. But along with the newly discovered seed-filled footprints, other finds like a cave in Oregon, a site in coastal Chile, and another cave in central Mexico all had signs of early humans long before they were originally thought to have existed on the continent. It's clear that even though some of these theories have been held for so long, new discoveries continue to change the facts of when the first migrations to the Americas began. Hey, real quick, if you're new to the channel, welcome. Thanks for checking us out. If you're liking this video, be sure to hit the thumbs up and subscribe buttons if you haven't already. Number 4. Ancient Chinese coins in Britain. If these discoveries aren't enough evidence that a global medieval trade route existed, this next discovery of a 1,000-year-old Chinese coin might convince you. Originally, researchers at the British Museum thought a coin found by a metal detector in a Hampshire field was from someone's private collection. But when they took a closer look at it, they realized it was a lot like one found in another area of England a few years earlier, one that might be connected to trade in medieval times between China and the UK. The copper alloy Chinese coin dated to the Northern Song dynasty, who held power between 1008 and 1016. When it was first discovered, researchers weren't totally convinced that it made it all the way to England by trade. Instead, they initially believed someone had lost it. It would have been more convincing if the coin had been found during excavations instead of being found with a metal detector. But its discovery in an area where other medieval and post-medieval materials have been found makes it a lot more likely that the two distant lands exchanged goods sometime in the past. Historical records detail trips by Englishmen to the Mongol Empire, and others show Mongol envoys visiting England in the 13th century. Other ancient Chinese artifacts, including the coin found in Cheshire, England in 2018, all add to the theory that a medieval trade route stretched further than previously thought. Who knows what other ancient Chinese artifacts are hidden and waiting to be discovered? Number 3. Hobbit Bones. A recent discovery by German scientists could be evidence that the island of Sulawesi was home to ancient humans. Humans that were strikingly similar to ones found in J.R.R. Tolkien's famous novels. In an island chain between western Indonesia and Papua New Guinea known as Wallacea, the skeleton of a 17-year-old girl was found in a remote cave. And when scientists studied DNA extracted from her bones, they realized she was part of a previously unknown human lineage that had disappeared from the world. With no ties to any living descendants in Indonesia, researchers had to study her genome to figure out where or when she came from. But she did have something in common with a mysterious extinct species of archaic humans who lived around 50,000 years ago, making the discovery even more remarkable. Experts think she was part of a group of hunter-gatherers known as the Toalian people who lived in the area. But these weren't the first ancient humans discovered in Indonesia that surprised scientists. A group excavating a cave in 2003 found a tiny hominin that was no taller than 3 feet and 7 inches. Some scientists believe that the tiny ancient human was so short due to disease, only to realize this was an entirely new ancient human species that resembled the hobbits described in the Lord of the Rings books. As scientists continue to put the puzzle pieces of this ancient human together, they now see that multiple different types of hominids lived on Earth, interacting and interbreeding with one another, which means there could be even more distinct lineages we haven't discovered yet. Truth really is stranger than fiction. Number 2. Child of Darkness. Down a dark passageway in South Africa's Rising Star cave system, the fragmented skull of a child who lived between 335,000 and 241,000 years ago could be the missing link between modern-day humans and our ancient ancestors. But the child, nicknamed Leti, or Lost One in the Setswana language of South Africa, wasn't the only ancient human found in the remote cave. Now scientists are racing to figure out how the fossils got there. The remains of 24 Homo naledi individuals were first discovered in 2013 in the Dinaledi chamber. But it's how they got there that is puzzling experts. The only way into the cave system is through a 39-foot narrow shaft known as the chute, and with no other entrances, the idea that Letty's skull was found shattered in pieces on a ledge almost 3 feet above the cave floor means she might have been brought down the chute to her final resting place. That's right, experts think the ancient humans whose skulls were no larger than an orange didn't actually throw the remains down the shaft. Somehow, they entered the maze-like cave system through the vertical chute, one that was only about 7 inches wide, to place their dead inside. So what was so special about this cave that the ancient humans went through such a treacherous journey to bury their dead? With its narrow passages, irregular floors, and countless fissures and obstructions, it was an almost impossible journey for scientists to get inside the cave to retrieve the bones. Imagine the effort it would have taken for ancient humans to get Letty inside. With no other evidence of why the people of prehistoric South Africa chose this cave system as a burial chamber, experts continue to study Letty's remains along with the other individuals buried alongside her to uncover more about the burial rites of this ancient species. Number 1. Ancient camel carvings. Until recently, researchers thought most cave art was found in France and Spain, with a few locations in England, Russia, and Indonesia. That theory changed when a series of desert rock carvings were discovered in northwestern Saudi Arabia. The discovery was quite remarkable, with experts believing the carvings of camels were done about 2,000 years ago. But as they continued to study the reliefs, painstakingly analyzing the heavily eroded carvings, they realized they dated from 7,000 to 8,000 years ago. That's long before both Stonehenge and the pyramids of Giza were built. It took 14 scientists to study the site with a number of different testing methods to get to the truth behind the carvings. By studying erosion patterns, analyzing the tool marks, and testing animal bones they found nearby, they determined the carvings were not only made with stone tools, but that they would have taken about 2 weeks to complete at the time they were left there. The area has earned the nickname the Camel Site, with the 21 surviving carvings depicting the legs, necks, and bellies of camels. Researchers also think whoever carved them came back to the same site over many generations, with the descendants of the first people to carve them repairing the images. At the time they were created, the area would have been a grassy plain with lakes instead of the desert we know today, making it an important site not only for food and water, but as a gathering place for these ancient people. Sadly, some of the rock panels had fallen and smashed before experts discovered the site, but in its glory days, the site would have been a stunning one to visit, with the carvings now seen as the world's oldest known large-scale animal reliefs. Number 8. Mummified feline friends. Cats are typically known for their captivating and cute faces, but what archaeologists in 2018 found was far from being cute. While digging through the tombs of ancient Egypt, not only did the team discover the typical mummified pharaohs, but also found their mummified pets. In 2018, a team of archaeologists in Egypt excavated a 4,500-year-old tomb close to Cairo. While it's already established that the pharaohs were buried with their dear ones around, with tombs often including servants, favorite items, and anything else they expected to need in the afterlife, they were taken aback when they found dozens of mummified cats. What was shocking wasn't that the people of that time had chosen to mummify cats, it was the number of cats that was jaw-dropping. Did the ancient Egyptians love their cats so much that they wanted to take several of them along with them to the afterlife? We can now assume that they did. The tomb also held other testimonies to uncover the ancient Egyptian love for felines. The team found 100 gilded statues of cats and also a statue of the ancient cat goddess herself, Bastet. According to the Ministry of Antiquities of Egypt, the tomb belongs to the 5th dynasty of the Great Egyptian Kingdom. It was discovered in Saqqara, which was previously the location of the ancient city of Memphis. There have been tales of cats being worshipped in ancient Egypt, but according to expert Antonietta Catanzariti, who was the curator of Smithsonian Sackler Gallery exhibit Divine Felines, Cats of Ancient Egypt, Although they did consider the creatures divine, they weren't really worshipped. Instead, cats were actually studied. Their behavior was examined to create images of gods and goddesses based on them. If you look at other deities of the era, you'll find references to several other animals as well, such as crocodiles, ibises, and cattle. So if the cats weren't worshipped, why were they mummified? It's suspected that, like anything else found in the tombs, the mummified cats were meant to accompany their owners into the afterlife. It was actually a fairly common practice, with cats likely being bred specifically for this purpose. Number 7. Massive Animal Tomb. Before the discovery of mummified cats in Saqqara, another necropolis, or massive tomb, that was determined to be roughly a millennia old, was discovered there, which held the remains of over 1 million animals. This massive graveyard dedicated to the ancient Egyptian god Anubis once accommodated up to 8 million corpses of jackals, dogs, and other animals. The remains were well preserved because all the animals were mummified. No matter what size or species they belonged to, each animal was meticulously embalmed and buried in the tomb. However, the massive number of the animal remains poses a huge question. Why 8 million? Even if you look at the historical practices of animal sacrifices, it is highly unlikely you will find a burial ground with numbers of corpses this large. Researchers spent years studying the catacombs in Saqqara, and based on their findings, we may finally have an answer. The tomb was dedicated to Lord Anubis and mostly contained remains of puppies and dogs. According to research, the crypt was dug sometime around the 4th century BC. After studying the spine-chilling remains of the animals, the team found that some of the animals may have been a few days or even hours old when they were killed and mummified. The dogs and pups may have been bred in large numbers in puppy farms. They were later made into mummies and sold off to pilgrims who offered the mummies to gods and goddesses. With reference to the above case, the animals were offered to Anubis. Anubis is a deity with the head of a jackal, and he is the god of both the afterlife and mummification. Perhaps this is why the mummified dogs were a significant offering to him. The site was first discovered in 1987. It is believed that many mummies might have been removed previously. While some were stolen by grave robbers, others disintegrated. Many of the animal remains were also used as crop fertilizers. The discovery had also uncovered a bit of an ancient scam. After scanning the mummies, it was found that most of them contained incomplete remains of animals, and some of them were even found completely empty. Allegedly, the embalmers wanted to pocket bigger profits by selling fake mummies. Number 6. Yucca the Mammoth. In 2010, when a group of Siberian tusk hunters from Yukagir village headed out for a hunt, they had no idea about the ancient biological marvel that was waiting for them. Yucca, a woolly mammoth, was found near the mouth of the river Kondratyevo in Siberia. She was named Yucca, a popular Japanese girl's name in reference to Yukagir, the village she was found near. The mammoth was estimated to be between 6 and 11 years old when she died. The 39,000-year-old remains are touted as the best preserved mammoth in the history of paleontology. Yucca survived in such pristine conditions because she was trapped in the permafrost for such a long period of time undisturbed. According to researchers, Yucca might have fallen in the water or maybe got stuck in a swamp. She couldn't free herself and eventually died there. Since she froze after drowning, the lower part of her body had been preserved in the ice for a longer time. Her legs, jaw, and tongue were extremely well preserved compared to the rest of her body. However, Yucca's upper torso and legs were exposed to the surroundings, and so those parts did not survive and were probably eaten by predators soon after her death. The scientists studying Yucca's carcass were even able to extract blood from her body. This was the very first time that scientists were able to gain access to such an amazing biological asset. After examining her blood, they found that mammoth blood had natural antifreeze properties, which probably helped them to survive in extremely cold environments. How amazing is that? Since October 2014, Yucca has been on display in Moscow and is considered as being the best preserved Siberian mammoth to be discovered so far. In 2019, Japanese researchers who were working with the mammoth's tissue stated that they were able to animate some nucleus-like structures to carry out further biological investigations. Number 5. The Thing. A mysterious football-sized fossil found in Antarctica left everyone, including researchers, scientists, and other experts, scratching their heads. It was unlike anything they had ever seen before. Sitting in a Chilean museum, it awaited an expert who could finally recognize what it was. Nicknamed The Thing, its mystery was finally solved in 2020. After a thorough analysis, it was determined that it wasn't a mini monster or an unknown beast. Instead, it turns out that the thing is actually a soft-shelled egg that was laid 68 million years ago. Scientists are speculating that it might have been the egg of an extinct species of lizard or snake. With a football-sized egg, it's safe to assume that the extinct species of lizard or snake would have been a pretty incredible size. According to the findings of the research, such soft-shelled eggs are extremely rare to find in fossilized form, and combined with its almost pristine preservation, the egg is one of the rarest things researchers have come across. It is also the largest egg of its kind that has ever been discovered. The researchers also said that they didn't know that these eggs could be of such enormous size. They feel it can be a rare glimpse into the reproductive tactics of the animals of its period. The thing was first discovered in 2011 by a team of scientists from Chile who were working in Antarctica. It looked something like a crumpled baked potato and measured approximately 11 by 7 inches. It left the experts baffled. For years, scientists examined the fossil and tried to find similarities with other prehistoric species. It was only in 2018 that a paleontologist speculated that the thing might be an egg. That's when the research moved in the right direction, and now we finally have an answer. What do you think could have been hatched from a prehistoric egg the size of a football? A giant snake? A car-sized turtle? Some kind of undiscovered dinosaur? Let us know in the comments below, and don't forget to like and subscribe so you can stay up to date on the latest videos. Number 4. Mystery Bones. The history of humans is ever evolving. The more we unearth, the more we learn. With discoveries of ancient remains, we are getting closer and closer to learning about our origins. Sometimes it simplifies the story as we know it, and sometimes things might just get more complicated. In June 2021, researchers unearthed fossilized ancient bones from a sinkhole in Israel. These were human bones. Well, at least they were somewhat human. These remains had features consistent with both Neanderthals and early humans, making them likely to fit in somewhere in between both species. That means these mystery bones may belong to a group of humans that scientists were previously unaware of. It's believed that this extinct group of humans lived in the area of over 100,000 years ago. The sinkhole where these remains were found was filled in during the time of the excavation, of course, but researchers think that in the past, the hole was filled with water, which must have attracted animals. The animals in turn attracted hunters belonging to this extinct human species, and under some circumstances, the hunters then died at the sinkhole's location. Tools and weapons were also found at the site, which further cements this theory. Number 3. The Mermaid. Mermaids have long been a part of fairy tales and folklore. They have been described as beautiful, alluring creatures in mythologies, while in others, these mythical beings have been feared for their dark side, pulling or luring people to their deaths. But no matter the culture, mermaids are mythical, imaginary, and a part of stories. However, the ancient Ryuguji temple in Japan has had possession of the bones of this mythical being and has them on display. Confused? According to a Japanese legend, in the early 13th century, a mermaid washed up on the shores of Hakata Bay in Kyushu. It was declared a good omen, and the mermaid was buried at the underwater palace of the dragon god. 800 years later, the bones of the mermaid were dug up, and those remains are on display even today at the Ryuguji Temple in Fukuoka. Some experts postulated that the bones could likely have been those of a dugong. Dugongs are vaguely human-shaped, flesh-tinted marine animals and have historically been confused with mermaids. However, here's the catch. The bones at the temple are not similar to the dugong. Over the years, many have suggested that the mermaid could actually be a porpoise. The Indo-Pacific finless porpoise is found near the area, and it is highly possible that one could have been washed ashore. But according to Dr. Daryl Domning of Howard University, who is a specialist in Sirenian paleontology, the bones at the Ryuguji Temple do not belong to any marine mammal. He believes that the bones actually belong to land animals. The information given at the temple's main hall leaves some room for analysis about the bones as well, and supports Dr. Domning's theory. The details say that the remains are thought to be from a mermaid excavated near the site, but it also says that all of the bones are considered to be from some mammals. It is very much possible that the mermaid's bones are actually a collection of bones from different animals. So do mermaids actually exist? We'll leave that to your imagination. Number 2. Siberian Unicorn. Unicorns, one of the premier mythical creatures, may not be in fact so mythical after all. Unicorns are in fact real. Perhaps not, however, in the way that your inner child is picturing. We all have been fed the pure, pristine image of a beautiful white unicorn, gleaming with magical powers, surrounded by rainbows and crying healing tears. The real image, however, couldn't be any further from the myth. Unicorns existed 350,000 years ago, and much like the animals alive in that time, they were big, burly, and hardly resembled the elegant creatures of story and song. According to research in 2016, the Siberian unicorns that actually roamed our planet were fatter and furrier than the image we have grown to know and love. These unicorns weren't like horses, but were more like rhinos. We guess the huge horn is the only similarity though. The species was thought to have gone extinct 350,000 years ago, but a recent, well-preserved fossilized skull discovered in Kazakhstan revealed that the animal may have still been around as recently as 29,000 years ago. The animals had migrated to western Siberia, where they are presumed to have survived for some time. Although the Siberian unicorn eventually went extinct, the animal whose skull was found survived the longest. Number 1. Abominable Footprint. In 1951, explorer Eric Shipton from Britain was looking for an alternate route to Mount Everest. In his search, he stumbled across something that changed his life and sent the whole world into a frenzy. A footprint was the source of all this chaos, but not just any footprint. This was a 13-inch long footprint leading to the mystery that we know as the Yeti. The Yeti still hasn't been found. Its enormous footprints are the only evidence of its existence we know of. A photo of the footprint was circulated around the world and gave rise to a wave of new explorers who were eager to find the mysterious mountain-dwelling creature known as the Yeti. The footprint was found on the Menlung Glacier, which is located on the west side of Mount Everest. It falls on the Nepal-Tibet border. Hoaxes and fake stories were prevalent during the period, but people believe Shipton because he was one of the most respected Everest explorers of the time. Yeti's case is different because the footprint was imprinted on stone or embossed on the soil. It was fresh and sharp, so sharp that even the camera captured it well. The snow at that altitude was hard, so it almost appeared as if someone had stepped on the plaster of Paris. The prints looked very similar to human ones, but the thumb gave it the appearance of some kind of primate. It could have been an animal or completely new species of human being with feet much larger than normal humans.
Number 10. Grand Canyon UFO Crash Site. In recent years, this image of what looks like a crashed spaceship has appeared online, along with stories about a team of experts discovering at a crash site in the Grand Canyon. The reports, which seem to come mostly from obscure pseudoscience websites rather than trusted news sources, claim that the UFO crashed 4,000 years ago, but was only recently discovered. According to one tale, the vehicle was made of an unknown metallic substance that emitted low levels of radiation. Its discoverers allegedly moved it to a secure, top-secret location. The stories about the UFO are frustratingly vague, with one Hysteco.com article stating that the craft was of a decent size and that it could carry about 20 individuals of a certain height. It references a so-called expert named Dr. Henry Lomont. The interior supposedly contained old food, drinks, and machines that resembled oxygen tanks. But we were unable to find any credentials for an astronomer named Henry Lomont or any information from trusted sources about the crashed UFO. So, did it really exist? What do you think? Number 9. Peculiar prehistoric predator. Around 506 million years ago, during the Cambrian period, a strange sea creature whose body resembled a spaceship lived in the ocean in what is now Canada. Nicknamed the Mothership, Titanosaurus gainensis fossils were recently discovered in the Canadian Rockies, the last place one might expect to find an ocean. But back when the creature existed, global temperatures were much higher. Consequently, sea levels were also higher, and much of North America was covered in water. The name Titanosaurus, which means Titanic helmet, refers to the creature's hard shell, which made up about 2/3 of its body. At just 20 inches long, it wasn't very big by modern standards, but it was one of the world's largest predators at a time when most other animals were smaller than a person's thumbnail, according to paleontologist and lead study author Bernard Caron, who spoke with Reuters. Caron described the creature as a giant swimming head with a disproportionately small body. It had a circular mouth filled with triangular tooth-like structures, 2 claws, which it used for catching prey, and gills and flaps for swimming. The strange species likely fed on worms and other small prey that were buried in the sea floor. It's so bizarre looking that even the scientists who found it were perplexed and unsure of exactly what kind of animal it was. Number 8. A UFO over Canada. On July 30th of this year, 2 pilots, one flying a commercial aircraft and another flying a military plane, reported seeing a bright green UFO over the Gulf of St. Lawrence off Canada's east coast. Both witnesses claimed that they saw the flying object for just a few seconds before it disappeared into the clouds. Thankfully, the incident did not affect either flight's operations. Aviation and shipping researcher Stephen Watkins examined the data from the flights and noticed that the military aircraft climbed 1,000 feet at the time of the sighting, perhaps to avoid colliding with the strange object. Watkins conceded that what looked like a UFO may have been a meteor. The timing matches up with the early stage of the annual Perseid meteor shower. Unlike the US, the Canadian government does not keep records of alleged UFO sightings, but there's no shortage of these incidents, and some civilians have collected tens of thousands of pages of data. Earlier this year, the Pentagon released a report on 140 UFO sightings. It concluded that most of the time, people probably did see an actual object, but there's no evidence pointing towards the incidents having anything to do with aliens. Number 7. A "what is this" star. Earlier this year, scientists announced the discovery of a star so peculiar they hesitated to put a name on it, instead categorizing it as a "what is this" or WIT object. Located over 25,000 light-years from Earth, in the heart of the Milky Way, the star appeared to blink on and off right before the researchers' eyes. Experts have only witnessed this phenomenon twice, and they don't know what causes it. They know of 5 objects with properties indicating that they experienced the phenomenon. The most recently observed star, known simply as VVVWIT08, is about 100 times bigger than the Sun. It's periodically blocked by a small object with an opaque disk, and scientists don't know what that object is. A gigantic star called Epsilon Aurigae is another star that blinks. In this case, a dust cloud passes by every 27 years, causing the star to dim. Scientists solved the mystery of these dimming periods fairly recently, in 2018. They believe that there are many more space objects that exhibit similar displays, and their next step is to determine what the companion objects are that cause it to happen. What do you think causes these stars to blink? Let us know in the comments below. And if you're liking this video, be sure to hit the thumbs up and subscribe buttons if you haven't already. Number 6. Unusual tree species. While working in Peru's Manu National Park in 1973, a botanist stumbled upon a bizarre tree that reaches up to 20 feet tall and grows tiny orange paper lantern-shaped fruit. Dr. Robin Foster, who discovered the tree, noticed that it had properties of plants from several different families. This was surprising, since she could usually categorize a plant just by looking at it. Samples from the specimen sat unidentified at the Field Museum in Chicago for nearly 50 years. Finally, in 2015, a team of botanists received enough funding to take a closer look at it. They attempted to do genetic testing on it, but the DNA was too broken down to get the results they needed. Researchers contacted Manu National Park scientist Patricia Alvarez Loaiza and described the tree to her. She tracked down a live specimen and took samples for DNA analysis. The results classified the tree as coming from the Picramniaceae family, but it looked so different from its relatives. The team second-guessed the results and sent the samples to Wade Thomas, an expert in the Picramniaceae family at New York Botanical Garden. He told Popular Science that at first, he too thought that the other researchers were mistaken, but he did some digging and concluded that they were right. Dubbed Enigmano alvarezii, it was named as a new species and genus. Thomas pointed out that in our current era of rapidly decreasing biodiversity, it's more important than ever for scientists to catalog new species. After all, knowing what a plant is and where it can be found are the first steps to conserving it. Number 5. Strange solar object. In 2005, scientists spotted an object whirring through space like an asteroid, yet it had the physical characteristics of a comet. While asteroids tend not to change in appearance, the object, dubbed 2005 QN173, sheds dust while it travels and has a long, thin tail. These traits indicate that it's covered in ice that vaporizes into space. It's located in the outer reaches of our solar system's asteroid belt, completing a full orbit roughly every 5 years. Thanks to their highly elliptical orbit, comets spend most of the time far enough away from the sun to remain frozen. They only come near the sun and Earth for short periods at a time, which is when their tails appear, courtesy of sublimation. This process turns solid ice directly into a gas, with no liquid phase in between. Objects in the asteroid belt, on the other hand, are typically inactive at all times. The discovery blurs the lines between asteroids and comets, two things that scientists previously thought of as two separate, distinct objects. 2005 QN173 is one of just 8 objects in the asteroid belt that researchers have observed in an active state multiple times, and it's one of 20 suspected main belt comets, as they've come to be called. It has an unusually narrow tail, which means the dust is flowing from it at extremely slow speeds and with a weak flow. But dust wouldn't normally be able to escape at such a slow pace, suggesting that another force is at play. Lead research author Henry Say explained that the object's nucleus could be spinning at a really high rate, causing the dust to flow more than it normally would. Scientists will get another chance to observe 2005 QN173 up close in February 2026, when it will be visible from the southern hemisphere and close enough to the sun to become active again. Number 4. Premature male babies age faster. It's a well-known fact that premature babies are at a higher risk of serious health problems than babies born at a normal weight. But scientists recently found that some preemies also age faster later in life. As part of a decades-long study on extremely low birth weight (ELBW) babies who were born at 2.2 pounds or less, a team of researchers determined that by the time they reach their 30s, ELBW males are genetically around 4.6 years older than men of the same age who had a healthy birth weight. The study focused on biological age, meaning the genes of ELBW males display similar chemical changes to the genes of someone older than them. For some reason, this doesn't happen with ELBW females. These findings corroborate the results of previous studies, which indicate that premature males are more sensitive than premature females to prenatal stress. And the reasons for this are entirely unclear. But the research undoubtedly shows that being born prematurely can play an important role in aging. Neuroscientist Ryan van Lieshout pointed out that the results emphasize the need to closely monitor the health of ELBW males throughout their lives, and to educate them on taking care of themselves to promote healthy aging. In the meantime, experts are trying to better understand why ELBW males age differently, and what can be done about it. Number 3. Iapetus. Saturn has 82 moons, more than any other planet in our solar system. In 1671, Iapetus was the second moon to be discovered orbiting Saturn, courtesy of Italian astronomer Giovanni Cassini. That was a long time ago, but Iapetus has stuck in scientists' minds ever since, because it has several properties that they can't quite explain. For one, it went missing for decades. Cassini observed Iapetus on the western side of Saturn. When he went to look for it on the eastern side of the planet later in its orbit, it was gone. Armed with a new telescope, Cassini finally spotted the moon again in 1705 on the eastern side of Saturn. It was much fainter than it had looked on the western side. Iapetus is the outermost and the third largest of Saturn's 8 most significant moons. 7 of these moons orbit within 1.6 degrees of the planet's orbiting plane. Iapetus, on the other hand, is tilted at 15.5 degrees compared to the rest of the Saturnian system. This makes no sense, because Iapetus is similar in composition to the planet's other prominent moons, and its orbit appears to be completely normal. What's even weirder is that Iapetus is shaped like a space object that completes a rotation every 16 hours, but it takes 79 days for the moon to rotate once. Iapetus also has a ridge on its equator that spans nearly its entire diameter. The ridge is segmented and appears to break into 3 parallel ridges at certain points, and nothing quite like it has been seen in any other space object. 350 years after Cassini made these observations, scientists are still trying to explain the weird features of Iapetus, and they've repeatedly come up empty-handed. Number 2. Perplexing Antarctic sponges. While drilling nearly 3,000 feet into the ice on Antarctica's Filcher-Ronne ice shelf earlier this year, a team of geologists spotted a collection of sponges and other life forms attached to the side of a rock. These stationary creatures were found living in pitch darkness and rigid sub-zero temperatures. Scientists were perplexed how anything could live in such a harsh environment where there's no sunlight and no obvious food sources. Thanks to advanced technology, experts are just now starting to explore beneath the ice shelves, which constitute some of the least studied habitats on Earth. British Antarctic Survey scientist Hugh Griffiths told CNN that the total area humans have seen below the ice shelves amounts to roughly the size of a tennis court. He further explained that the creatures found on the rock must be highly specialized for surviving in the environment they live in, because there's a good chance that they go without food for long periods of time. Some of them could be new species of creatures that already live in Antarctica. Learning from these hardy specimens could prove useful for helping scientists understand how they withstand their inhospitable habitat. In order to do so, scientists will have to gain better access to them and do more research on what goes on deep beneath the ice. As Griffiths put it, there is a whole world that we know nothing about. There is life on Earth that isn't playing by the rules that biologists understand. Number 1. Mysterious DNA. Deep in the mud of the California wetlands, scientists have found an unusually large DNA structure made up of massive strings of DNA. Known as a Borg, it likely belongs to a single-celled organism. It carries numerous genes that are unknown to science, and experts don't exactly know what they do. Geomicrobiologist Gillian Banfield and her colleagues were digging for DNA fragments that are involved in the carbon cycle when they unexpectedly found the Borg. In a recent study, the team wrote that they believe the structures are a type of extra-chromosomal element, meaning they store extra DNA outside their chromosomes. ECEs often come with genetic advantages that give them capabilities beyond essential functions, such as antibiotic resistance. Borgs possess a fascinating combination of features, and roughly 80% of their DNA performs unknown functions, according to lead study author Bassem El-Shayeb. The remaining 20% of material consists of genes that help to boost their host's capabilities, like metabolizing methane. The Borg's ability to efficiently metabolize methane means they could potentially come in handy for removing greenhouse gases from the environment. They may also be able to improve protein production and boost the nitrogen fixation process, which turns nitrogen into compounds that help crops grow. Thanks for watching. What's the strangest thing you have ever discovered? Let us know in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe. See you next time. Bye!